We're in Slane. I finished off my last video because I'd forgotten what I had originally said I was going to talk about, which was my future self, which I'm going to get to now. But as I signed off the last video, I was like, fuck, I'm just coming through Slane. That would have been a nice visual for the background of the podcast. So I pulled over, and in the 5 seconds since I finished the last recording, I A, have remembered what I wanted to talk about in my previous episode, the idea of your future self. And B, I've realised the importance of having 10 topics to talk about, because when I'm out in my deliveries, as I am now, it's an ideal opportunity for me to do this, because I can essentially do 2 things at once. I can literally double my productivity. I won't have to take time out of my life later on today to do this. I won't have to set aside time. The time is already set aside, and if I'm only doing 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 minute videos, I could bang out fucking 10 or 20 of them every Tuesday or Thursday when I do my deliveries. So, in relation to my future self, this has been something that's rattling around in my head only recently, to be honest with you. And the beauty of me putting pen to paper, so to speak, and recording this and doing this is it really gives me a chance to hone in on my thoughts. So I'm going to go through the tenses. Brace yourselves for a lesson in tenses. Your past self is, you prior to the present moment. That's your past self. It's in the past, can't be changed, you're fucking stuck with it. Your present self is who you are in this present moment, and I suppose you can do what you can to change it, but it's very much dependent on your past self. Your future self is obviously you post the present moment. So it's me in 10 seconds, 20 minutes, 5 years, 50 years. It's you in the future. But what I've been thinking about of late is what I've called your future self. So I have to backtrack here a little and explain how I came about thinking about this. So I've had conversations with people on the podcast, on the Off the Lead podcast, and during COVID, people couldn't call over to my house and I couldn't call over to their house. So I built what I called the mobile podcast studio. I'm currently in a Renault Master van, but it's a box body. It's a fucking huge big thing. It's got a curtain side on both sides. It's kind of like a small lorry. And what I did was I built a small studio that I could pick up at my forklift and put into the back of my van. And I split it in half with a sheet of Perspex, so I had essentially 2 separate rooms with a table in each one, and a chair and a mic and a laptop and a heater and a light and all the rest of it. And the idea was that I could jump in one side of it myself, get a guest to jump in the other side, and we'd effectively be able to have a 4-hour conversation without being in the same room. And that worked perfectly well for the couple of times that I got to use it. But we're now out the other side of COVID, thank God, and it was collecting dust and taking up space down in my place of business. So one of the days there last week, I got the brainwave of saying, do you know what, I could bring that back to my house, take it out of the van and use it as an extra room in my house, as a little man cave, as a place to record solos such as this, or to have conversations with other people, or to just give the kids and the wife a break from me, or for me to take a break from the kids and the wife and just have an extra room in the house, essentially. And that got me thinking, maybe this is the catalyst. My mind has a tendency to wander, as you may have gathered. Maybe this is the catalyst for change. Maybe I'll end up recording a load of solo episodes such as this one in this studio, or maybe I'll get back to writing that book I've been threatening the world to write for the number of years, because I'll have the physical space that I can literally get out of the house, away from distractions, and actually put pen to paper and get a bit of headspace. And I started, I don't know how, but I started imagining being interviewed in the future. And the interviewer asked me, Frano, can you think of a moment when everything changed for you? And I think this is a really good one for creative people especially to ponder. Imagine yourself in the distant future, 5 years, 10 years, when you have essentially the life that you would love to have. So the life that you would love to have in this present moment in time, imagine the life that you would love to have. Let's say you're sitting on a fucking yacht counting your fucking billions. Now imagine looking back on a time that hasn't happened yet. That's the important thing. So you're in the future, looking backwards in time, but at a time that hasn't happened in this present moment. And you're either being asked by an interviewer or you're just pondering to yourself, what was the catalyst for change? So hypothetically, the interviewer goes, Frano, you're a fucking world famous YouTuber, you have hundreds of millions of views every day, fucking a million subscribers and all the rest of it. When did things really change? And I just kind of ran with that as a thought experiment. And I said to myself, well, I suppose what really happened, or the big catalyst for change was, one day I brought the studio back to the house. And that really set the tone for change, because I started writing, I started recording, and I started giving the whole off the lead thing a real lash again. And because I had somewhere to go, I started producing more and more content. That got a bit of traction. Then I started having a bit of a follower. My subscription base went from like 250 to 1,000. I was only at it a couple of months and it went to 10,000. Once it broke the 10,000 mark, I started getting asked to go on other people's podcasts, and then it was exponential after that. But the real catalyst for growth was when I brought the studio back to the house and started using it. And then I started thinking, okay, maybe bringing the mobile studio back to the house isn't what's going to be the catalyst. What is going to be the catalyst? And then I started thinking of other things that I could do, and even things that prior to this present moment. And I could envisage myself saying, oh, well, things really started changing when I started logging my weight. Because two things happened there. A, I stayed on top of what I was eating, because before I went to bed at night, instead of drinking fucking 6 cans of beer, hitting the bong a couple of times, and eating my body weight in twirls and whisper chasers, instead of doing all that, I go, no, I'm going to fucking weigh myself in the morning, so I don't want to fucking stuff myself, and I'm not even fucking hungry, I'm just being a greedy bastard. So I'm not going to. And that, over time, knowing that I was going to physically write down my weight the next morning, that made me less inclined to eat so much. And the weight just kept going down. Now, I did it for about 12 weeks solid and then stopped doing it because there was no real need. I got down to 78 kilos or something, and I was getting a bit underweight, so there was no real need to do it anymore, so I stopped doing it. I stopped doing it for November, December and January. We're now it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. It's the 14th of February 2023. And I'm back weighing myself, I'd say about 2.5 weeks. It is 2.5 weeks because I have my weight for at the end of the 7 days, and I have my weight at the end of the second 7 days, and I'm down 0.75 kilos. And I don't have a third weight, so I'm weighing myself about 2.5 weeks every day. And it's been great. Like it was the first time. I'm not eating as much in the evening because I know I have to weigh myself in the morning. And it's the logging of it, it's the constant tracking of it that I think is the most beneficial out of everything. And logging things and tracking things, I think, is really vital. There's a saying in business circles, what you measure grows. And it basically means that the things that you log, the things that you not just pay close attention to, but the things that you pay close attention to and actually log, you write them down. Because we all tend to pay attention to, I think our weight is a good example. We pay really close attention to what we're eating, and 6 months go by and we're fucking 5 pounds heavier than we were when we started. But you're not logging it, because it's like the hour hand on a clock. If you keep the odd eye on it, you'll never notice it moving, but it is fucking moving. But if you're logging it, you can actually see how much it's moving by. But anyway, I digress. Getting back to my future self. I have ambitions to do all sorts of things and to achieve great things and to do all sorts, and that's a whole other podcast in itself. I've certainly not peaked. I have a thriving business. I have 3 lads employed, excluding myself, but I'm not, 100th of the way there to where I want to be. And the same for my, my sporting endeavours. I used to be a fighter. I'm fucking 39. I'm realistically hardly going to get back competing at that kind of thing again, as much as it fucking kills me to admit it. And certainly wouldn't fucking rule it out. But anyway, the idea being on an emotional, on a physical, on a financial level, I most certainly have not fucking peaked, not by any stretch of the imagination. And incremental improvements will prevail if I keep getting better and better at different things marginally. I'll certainly get there. But there are always catalysts for change. There's always something that people start doing that really, stoke the fucking fire of progression or of achievement or whatever way you want to frame it. And what I've been thinking about in relation to your future self, looking back on your future self, is trying to invent different catalysts. So bringing the podcast studio back to the house will be one. Committing to doing these 100 videos or whatever I end up doing and making each one ever so slightly better and learning along the way. That could be another one. I'm backlogging my weight. Maybe that'll be another one. And the more catalysts that you can intentionally incorporate into your life, the greater the potential there is for you realizing your fucking dreams and your potential. And on that note, I'll chat to you soon.